Welcome to the lesson on inductive reasoning. Let's start with a good definition here. So our first definition is a conjecture, is an unproven statement, and one of the key words here is that it is unproven statement that is based on observation. So we don't know for sure if it's true or not, but we can make a sort of an educated guess based on what we see. So some examples, of conjectures would be something like it's cloudy outside, so it's probably going to rain. Okay? Or that there will be lots of snow this winter. Okay, so those are a couple of examples from the mathematical from the non-mathematical world. This is just from nature. Okay, let's take a look at an example, maybe a conjecture from the natural world, from the mathematical world. So we'll say something like the sum of the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. And this statement, while your middle school teacher probably told you that it's true, as far as we're concerned, it's unproven. We haven't proved any of this stuff yet. Okay, and you can see here sometimes you can't prove anything. Like when we're talking about the weather, we can certainly make some good observations, but we can't prove anything. In mathematics, there are statements that we can make, and sometimes we can actually prove those statements. So that's basically the idea behind a conjecture. You use inductive reasoning when you find a pattern in specific cases and then write a conjecture for the general case. So one example of this is that when we use number patterns. So let's say I have this pattern 1, 3, 5, 7, okay? And I ask you to fill in the rest. Well, you would probably say that the numbers that come next are 9, 11, okay? So you can see this pattern, and then we want to be able to write a conjecture. Okay? And the conjecture could be something simple as this is a list of odd integers. Okay? Or we can also, maybe I can do something a little bit trickier. Maybe I go 1, 3, 7, 13, 21, and then I'll ask you to fill in the rest. Okay, and this doesn't quite follow a pattern, but there is somewhat of a pattern to this. It isn't quite clear. So here I'm adding 2. Then I'm adding 4, then I'm adding 6, then I'm adding 8, okay? So we increase by 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. Okay, so this is our rule or our conjecture. Now we don't know if this is going to continue on forever. We don't know if this is going to be go on to infinity. But at least we know that there's a rule here that we can see. Okay. So this is again a lesson about finding patterns, about writing a rule or a hypothesis about the patterns that we see. And we're not proving anything yet. We don't know for sure if it's true, but this is just about making some observations. Okay? All right. So to continue here, we have a counterexample. So a counterexample is a specific case for which the conjecture is false. So it's basically like you have a statement and then you use a counterexample to disprove the statement. Okay. So let's see an example of that. Okay. So one example conjecture that I could give is that all prime numbers are odd. And you start listing out these prime numbers. You see if it's true or not. 3 is a prime number, that's odd. 5 is a prime number, that's odd. 7 is a prime number, that's odd. 11 is a prime number, 13, 17, 19, those are all prime numbers and those are odd, but the counter example would be 2. Okay? So 2 is a even prime number. Okay? So that shows that this statement is false. Okay? So the counter example is used to disprove or to prove the conjecture to be false. Okay? And so in mathematics, and especially in geometry, we'll say a lot of statements. We'll say all triangles, they have angles that add up to 180 degrees. Okay? And maybe we can find a counterexample, maybe we can't. Okay? Or we maybe say things like all quadrilaterals add up to 360 degrees. That's also a conjecture, but we don't know if that's true or not. Okay? And in order to disprove it, we find a counterexample. Now, in order to prove it, it's going to be a little bit more complicated, and we will get to that shortly. Okay, so let's look at some of these examples. And what I'm going to start doing with these notes is that I'm only going to do some of the examples, and I'm going to have you do the rest for good practice. And as long as you give it a good effort, you should be okay. So for this, I'm going to do numbers 1 and 3. Okay? And then I'm going to ask you to do numbers 2 and 4. So do on your own. Okay, and then we'll share our answers in class. So here it says, sketch the next figure in the pattern. So we have 1 here, then 4, then 9 dots. Okay, 1, 4, and 9 dots. So the next thing that's I think is gonna come in the pattern is we're gonna have a grid of 4 by 4. Here we had a 1 by 1, then 2 by 2, then 3 by 3. So next I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be the next figure in the pattern there. Okay. Again, I'm going to leave it to you to figure out how to do numbers 2 and 4 on your own, and we'll share our answers. And now we'll look at the next example. What is going to be the next figure in the pattern? Well, I see 3 rectangles, so I'm going to draw a rectangle also. And parts of it are shaded, parts of it are not. But if we look at this, we can see that the arrow, or so this point here, it goes it goes right, then up, then left. Okay, so the next logical explanation is that it's going to go down. So before it went right, then up, then left. So it's basically sort of moving around counterclockwise. So the next one is going to go down, and we have to be careful. The line extends from the corners to the side here, and then back up here. And as we draw this, we can kind of see some of the patterns that we need to follow. This one that goes up, it doesn't touch the sides. It doesn't touch the corners. It only touches the sides. So I need to readjust my picture here so that only this part here, only the sides here gets touched. So it's pointing down, and then I am going to need to shade this right here. Okay, you can kind of follow the shading around the picture. So the unshaded arrow here points right, then up, then left. So the next thing it's going to go down, and the one after that it's going to point right again. Okay, so again, this first part of the notes is really just about familiarizing ourselves with some patterns and understanding some vocabulary, what these terms actually mean. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here, start the next one with some more examples.